For decades, there has been a debate on college campuses between protecting students from uncomfortable speech or letting controversial and sometimes deplorable opinions be heard. Over 20 million students attended American colleges and universities in the 2015-2016 school year. 48% of 25 to 34-year-olds have at least an associate's degree, spending 2 years on a college campus. The ability of students to challenge people with different opinions on campus is essential. With so many people forming ideas and perspectives for the future, all sides of a debate need to be heard, even if one is considered deplorable. College enrollment continues to grow. Between 2004 and 2014, it increased 17%. In the future, this problem will affect even more people and will be an even greater issue, if not addressed now. There is no one problem on college campuses. It ranges from policies like speech codes and trigger warnings to the actions of an individual professor or student group. There is no simple fix to this problem. Ask yourself if listening to the other side is good, if talking with people you disagree with is beneficial. Many people have views that I disagree with or find deplorable, but that does not mean that I have the right to curtail their ability to speak or censor them. Being offended does not make one's opinion right or just. That goes for me, that goes for you, and for anyone we all may disagree with. American millennials, the generation in college or just entering the workforce in the last decade, are more likely than any past generation to support censoring offensive statements towards minorities at 40%, compared to the average of 28%. However, those with some level of college education, even if not a full degree, were less likely to support censoring offensive statements at 22%. If not in college, when will students learn how to argue with those who challenge them as an individual in their worldview? College shapes our dialogue and culture beyond the campus. The views formed on college campuses need to be challenged and questioned so that those which can have a true beneficial impact can survive. Silencing a group because of their ideas stifles progress and holds back a community from moving forward. Speech codes are one of the most prevalent forms of censorship on campus. Colleges from the University of the Virgin Islands to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore have them. Take the speech code at the University of the Virgin Islands, which prohibits conduct that results in physical manifestations, significantly restraints on normal behavior or conduct, and/or which compels the victim to seek assistance in dealing with the distress. This code was later ruled unconstitutional by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, as it was entirely subjective and provides no shelter for the core protected speech, and could have been applied to further scenarios such as a religious student organization inviting an atheist to attend a group prayer meeting and causing distress. One of the largest issues with speech codes is their legality.
Many speech codes are overbroad. They silence what might be offensive speech, but not speech that's illegal in any way. And many courts have struck down those kinds of speech codes.
The University of the Virgin Islands is a public university, and as such, all policies they have regarding freedom of expression must align with those of the federal government. Thus, the First Amendment directly applies at the University of the Virgin Islands, resulting in their speech code being unconstitutional.
What happens is they're either so narrow that they don't do what their proponents want them to do, or they're so broad that if they're challenged, it takes 10 minutes for some judge to say, no, strike this down.
However, private universities are not held to the same standard as public ones because they, as private institutions, create their own rules concerning freedom of association. So, the similar speech code at Johns Hopkins University to that of the University of the Virgin Islands is entirely legal. However, even a speech code is legal on a private campus. That does not mean it has a place there.
There will not be good education here if we don't have, robust freedom of expression and protection for academic freedom. And we will be a better university even if ideas are being expressed that you don't like or that the majority doesn't like. One function of a good college education is debate. And it may be unpleasant debate, but it's important.
Colleges have an obligation to educate their students to the best of their ability. As Johns Hopkins' mission statement says its goal is, to educate its students and cultivate their capacity for lifelong learning, to foster independent and original research, and to bring the benefits of discovery to the whole world. Having a speech code, even a legal one, on campus is wrong. The intention of protecting students, while noble, is ill-advised. True safe spaces do not exist. There is no place where what is said is free of consequences or judgment.
rarely do you ever have true safe spaces. Everyone's always holding on to their phone. Just because like you're in a safe space doesn't mean that someone's not like listening to what you're saying.
Away from college campuses, in the workplace, and in public, there are no safe spaces. Colleges, in preparing students for a future out in society, impacting change, has no place instituting protections, insulating different ideas across campus.
I'm skeptical of efforts to be protective of students. I think actually, students are resourceful and protect themselves to the extent they want to protect themselves.
Colleges are a place to learn to discuss and argue about differences, not isolate ideas. Safe spaces are a detriment to the unity and success of a community. Trigger warnings come from the same place as safe spaces, wanting to protect students from distressing material. Take the policy at Drexel University in Philadelphia. It is expected that instructors will offer appropriate warning and accommodation regarding the introduction of explicit and triggering materials used. Informing students about the content of a course isn't wrong, but requiring professors to do so, like at Drexel University, is.
There are lots of things that happen in real life, including some very terrible things. And I would expect for my students to have the wherewithal to be able to deal with that sort of things.
A college campus cannot be a place where anything upsetting cannot be seen or heard. Lots of things that have to be studied are upsetting.
If students, as a result of trigger warnings, don't challenge themselves to confront distressing material, how can genocides be opposed or the history of Jim Crow and lynching be faced? With trigger warnings, a student may never get the full story, only the non-distressing part. Exiting college, uninformed and ill-prepared, does a disservice to the student and society. Free speech zones, like many of these policies, are not exclusive to college campuses. At the Democratic National Convention in 2004, anti-war protests surrounded the event, and an area was set up where they could protest. It was made of concrete barriers and metal fence. On college campuses, these zones aren't made of concrete barriers and metal fence, but they serve the same purpose. At the University of Central Arkansas, an area of 1,000 square feet is the only location students can protest on campus without prior approval.
And I think the principles that apply out in public are ones that ought to apply on campuses. I really don't see why a permit should be required or advance approval from the administration.
Protests on and off campus cause disruption, and it's understandable that colleges want to minimize that effect. But the purpose of a protest is to cause disruption, to draw attention to an issue, not to silence an individual or a group, and that cannot be effectively done in a 1,000 square foot area. Colleges need to be open in allowing protesters to speak across campus without confining them to a specific plot of land. All of these policies exist in reaction to uncomfortable speech on campus, protecting students in the classroom with trigger warnings, in dorms with safe spaces, on the quad with free speech zones, and on the campus as a whole with speech codes. But uncomfortable speech exists off college campuses, in places without speech codes, in public spaces where those policies would be and are unconstitutional.
Like colleges and universities should be areas where students kind of interrogate faculty members, interrogate the administration, the institution, but also interrogate themselves.
College is meant to prepare students for that future, and for that, some safety nets are required. But the world is an uncomfortable place, and students need to be prepared to enter it where they will have less control. 54% of students are uncomfortable speaking their mind on campus. If those students take that beyond college, then uncomfortable speech will never be challenged, only ignored, no views changed, only silenced. Take Milo Yiannopoulos' event at UC Berkeley on February 2nd, 2017. Milo, at the time, was a writer for Breitbart, the conservative news site, and he is known for going to college campuses and making provocative statements, often drawing a crowd of protesters. The students at UC Berkeley have a right to protest, no matter what Milo was planning to say, liberal or conservative. However, they cannot have the power to stop him from speaking. These protests turned violent, with $100,000 in damages, with Molotov cocktails and overturned cars.
So here's this person who is saying, things with, abhorrent things. So you throw Molotov cocktails, you burn things, you smash windows. No, we're not going to let him speak. No, we're not going to let him speak. No, we're not going to let him speak.
Milo's talk was canceled out of concern for his safety and those planning to attend the event. The actions of these protesters are deplorable, as is what Milo usually says at his events. But violence and shouting others down is not the way to make your voice heard or change what people believe. To stop what Milo and others are saying, change their minds. Don't shout them down. Convince people that they are wrong with words and facts, not that you are wrong by using violence.
The idea of running him away, the idea of suppression, is only you're gonna lose the battle of public opinion. You're gonna weaken yourself. I thought that was terrible. What happened in Berkeley?
The incident at UC Berkeley is not an isolated event, as seen with Charles Murray at Middlebury College in Vermont on March 2nd, 2017, where a liberal professor debating against Murray's work, which suggests that race and intelligence are connected, was injured. With Hampshire College in Massachusetts on November 10th, 2016, where a campus American flag was stolen and burned, and then all flags across campus were taken down by the college. Or with Heather McDonald, who was shouted down at Claremont McKenna College in California on April 6, 2017, due to her conservative views on policing in the United States.
What is it saying about free speech when, we only acknowledge free speech as how, incendiary can I be?
Even if these incidents were isolated, it would still be an issue. Students on college campuses are beginning to think that being offended is justification to silence those with whom they disagree, because of the policies on campus and the experiences they have had. Uncomfortable speech will always exist, and it must be allowed to do so. It challenges our ideas. It teaches us how to argue and debate, strengthening our communities and moving them forward. Free speech does not exist. There is no way in an open society to say something without consequences. But these policies on campus are creating consequences that can stop speech altogether. They may be well-intentioned, but they are never worth it. Protecting students from offensive or uncomfortable speech does a disservice to their future. The conversations people learn to have on college campuses is the type that impacts political and social change for the future. Talk with your friends and family. Talk with people across the political spectrum and try to change their minds or see if they'll change yours. Whether you're conservative or liberal, a college student or a business owner, college campuses filled with open and free debate are better regardless.